by transformation?
Hence, for us, we are using decolonization. Decolonize. Transformation, the term itself is not ours. The moment the term becomes embraced by white people, it becomes a problem. Now we reinvent. Now we're reinventing now decolonization, and when we reinvent that, we are saying black first. That's our position. Point of departure.
White's out.
Sorry?
White's out.
No. Don't talk on behalf of us.
No, I'm asking.
No. Okay? One of the successes of Rhodes Must Fall was to be able to tell white people to do what we want them to do. We told the University of Cape Town, remove the statue. Within a month, they removed it. Because to us as black people, it was insultive. And as part of that, those progressive white students within us, we told them to sit down and listen. And they sat down and listened. And those who were not prepared, we kicked them out without an apology. That's our success. Now, when we say decolonize, transform decolonize the whole structure of the university. Hence, we're saying at UCT, the Senate, the council is the problem. At UCT, you've got Hugh Amo, the registrar of UCT, who was the registrar during apartheid. How do you expect such a person to transform a university? Hence, we are saying transform decolonize that.
All right, Ernst, you seem to be slightly uncomfortable with this. Am I reading your body language wrong?
No, you're reading it correctly. I think personally I have an interest in the history of Cecil John Rhodes because my great-grandfather was almost killed in one of the British concentration camps. So I believe that Afrikaners as a community also have a very strong opinion, negative opinion of Cecil John Rhodes. But despite my personal opinions, I was not rejoiced when I saw you on the news vandalizing the statue. I was not rejoiced by the UCT this remove the statue campaign because I think it's disingenuous. Because
why do you say it's disingenuous?
Well, in the first place, this campaign was inundated with racist, anti-white slogans. You yourself have been expelled for that.
All right, let's give him a chance to speak.
The second reason is I've never heard you guys complaining about...
Slut? Which slut? A racist slut? Which one? Just cite
You
one.
can read the news. You can read your disciplinary documents.
But let Ernst finish. But in all fairness, you need to be prepared to articulate your point. Ernst, go ahead.
No, but he knows. He's just trying to get me off.
It's not about me. It's about the audience.
In a second.
This is the man who said white people are not welcome on the campus. That white people must leave. Who allegedly, according to media reports, which you deny, who allegedly said that white people need to be killed. So that's the one reason. The second reason is I've never heard you complaining about names or statues that are offensive to minority communities where they really have a reason to complain. One example, the street of Amanzimtoti to Andrew Zondo. Andrew Zondo was an ANC Youth League member. He planted a bomb in the shopping centre. He killed 2 ladies and 3 children. Now they renamed the main street after him. That's an offensive name because there are people living in that town who have been murdered by the man after which the mainstream has been renamed.
All right, Ernst, but do you accept that things must change?
What do you mean when you say things must change?
I mean exactly that. I mean that it is high time that we see greater representation of black people in senior management positions. It's high time that we see more black students in universities. Do you accept that?
You're going to... Let me qualify before I answer because you're going to quote me out of context. Yes, universities must be inclusive. Black people need to have access. They need to have more access to universities. But the problem with this transformation debate is that the focus is on the wrong place. It's an output-based focus. We're saying if 90% are black and 8% are white and so forth, then we have achieved equality.
No, that's not what we're saying. That is not what we're saying. We're saying let's give equal opportunity
to students. Action policy is based
to students who've worked hard enough to make it into university, not to be isolated out of these institutions because of money.
White and black
Shahira, help us.
Access, yes.
Well, I think, Ernst, I really disagree with your terminology of using or saying that the Cecil John Rhodes statue was vandalized. Firstly, because ideologically, when you look at the person that Cecil John Rhodes was and what he stood for, black students throwing poo at his statue is not vandalism.
According to the law,
it's justice. It's justice. He deserved every bit of poo that was thrown at his statue.
What Ernst has just done is absolutely out of order. We can't allow the likes of him and AfriForum to take our focus away from decolonization and tell lies about our history. There is no way Andrew Zondo can be regarded as a terrorist. He knows that himself. Rhodes Must Fall has put decolonization on the table. Now we must attend to that in a very substantive way. There must be a clear focus on how we finance education, such that actually it is free up to university level.
One of the successes of colonialism and apartheid was the epistemicide, or the destruction of the indigenous languages. When we want to deal effectively with matters such as transformation, it would mean that it must start when children are still at kindergartens, as to how can we now groom children in an African way. And we must not listen to the honorable gentleman from the Department of Higher Education, because he's misleading the country, he's misleading young people. It is disingenuous of him to say that as the government they haven't achieved. In the University of Witwatersrand, where Professor Habib is a vice chancellor of, you had 54,000 applications, spaces that were available in 6,400. Now, if you say that doors of learning and education are open to young people of this country, what do you mean?
So let me give you the real numbers. We had 60,000 applications, 5,800 places. You think that's bad? You applied to medical school, we have 9,000 applications, 200 places. And that replicates itself in institution after institution. So those are the real numbers. But I think we need two sets of conversation. One is on the transformation question. I believe in decolonization. I believe in majority rule at student and staff level. I believe that we should decolonize the curriculum. Having said that, I think we must do so thoughtfully. Because somebody said in that opening panel, you can't decolonize the university if you haven't decolonized the society. And that's what I find when people throw rhetorical tools, transform, indigenize languages, without thinking how you do it. How do you finance higher education in a context where the state has been underfunding higher education for 20 years?
Fair enough. Panache, so it isn't really Adam's fault, is it?
First of all, there's a condescension of saying that students don't think through what they're saying when we say decolonize. Then to use it to say, hold on, just wait, is a problem. So I would not like to be have my words used out of context in that way. I don't mean just wait, because we've been waiting for 21 years.
Yeah, in all fairness, though, should we not be partly blaming the government for not funding enough students?
Beyond funding, I think, first of all, we have an issue starting right at 1994, because we have an issue when we talk about transformation. We say, it's saying add blacks and stir, right? That's what you're saying. You don't actually change, right? Because he's saying he's got 7 out of 10 in the management is black. But understand that those blacks are still colonized, because those are the ones who continue to perpetuate the same kind of racist institutions, right? When we talk about decolonization, it's also a mindset. We're talking about the intangible. It's also about our mindset.
So I'm also just a little bit confused, because you call yourself a coconut. Why is that?
So when I speak about coconuts, I understand that I'm the kind of person who the Rainbow Nation loves, right? Because I speak so well. People like myself are often co-opted into these things, right? People say, oh, she speaks so well, she's not like other blacks, right? And some of us enjoy those positions. We like not to be like other blacks. We like to be separated, and we get used, right?
So are you saying that 7 out of 10 in the senior management are being used?
Who funds a university? Who's on the Senate Council? Who actually makes decisions at the end of the day? So I might have a position as a black person, but do I actually have power? Which is why we problematize things like BEE, because we have a lot of black people sitting as CEOs, but do they actually have power to affect any change? They don't.
All right, thank you very much.
one of the challenges is the universities themselves, because they undermine the black academics. Universities don't give black academics opportunities to become professors. But I think to go further, I think it's important when we talk about transformation to think that the color is a proxy for transformation. That is very dangerous. For instance, the DA, the fact that we've got Musima Emane, that does not mean it's transformation. It means assimilation. And we must understand the difference.
Not everyone, by the way, especially not every black student is for Rhodes Must Fall.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
I do not like how it was conducted. I feel like it could have been done in a less undignified manner. Yes.
How? What do you mean by that specifically? Do you mean by defacing the statues, or you mean defacing the statues with poo particularly?
Actually, both.
Okay.
I don't think they should have been defaced in the first place. Maybe we could have had like conversations before and whatnot.
But I think they've been having conversations.
You cannot determine how people have to protest. Yes. If you decide your form of your protest is to throw whatever, I agree with the social movement against Rhodes.
But Bandile, the ANC has to take responsibility for not transforming the universities.
Not necessarily.
The ANC has to take responsibility for not transforming society.
No, let's cut in. It's important to say that I think I agree with Prof here when he says that people who undermine the complex nature of the 1994 breakthrough in necessary fact mean that they don't understand what was going on in the country. The good thing about the campaign on Rhodes Must Fall is that it has brought us to a debate to say that little transformation has happened. How do we accelerate it?
Let's leave it right there. When we return, we talk about the connection between Rhodes and Mandela. Intrigued? You've got a sense of humor. But, you know, it is a little bit ridiculous to hold on to old statues.
That's a ridiculous statement to make, with all due respect. We have this campaign now to remove statues, and we had all this vandalism, which some people disagree with the fact that it was vandalism. And the argument that we often hear is, yes, but it happened in other places of the world as well, where the Germans took down statues of Hitler and so forth. But there's two differences. The one difference is those statues were actually taken down by the people whose forefathers put them up there. That's the one difference. And the other difference is that the debate is narrated by what's happening in politics in South Africa at the moment. So we might, in 10 or 20 years, have a situation where, for example, the EFF governs the country, and they decide, no, Nelson Mandela was a sellout, so we're going to pull down the Nelson Mandela statue as well.
That will be complex. However, it will be the democratic right of a future generation to represent itself in however way it feels, so long as it's rational, democratic, and really thought through. I don't have a problem with removing even Mandela. However, the point I was going to make is that the AfriForum and others have really made themselves irrelevant to this debate, because what it ignores is the fact that Rhodes Must Fall moment actually challenged a number of thinking white students to really think through their privilege, through their history, acknowledge it, and then take the decision to move on. I think that's the kind of white people we need to have this debate with, not the AfriForum of the kinds we have.
All right, let's talk about this quote from Utata Nelson Mandela, and I'm going to read it for you. We are sometimes still asked by people how we could agree to have our name linked to that of Cecil John Rhodes in this Mandela Rhodes initiative. To us, he said, the answer is easy. For us to come together across historical divides to build our country together. He says, I'm sure that Cecil John Rhodes would have given his approval to this effort to make the South African economy of the early 21st century appropriate and fit for its time. Panache, what are your thoughts on this quote?
I think it's very upsetting that Mandela's voice is continually used to silence black voices, that every time we want to speak about black pain,
That's not true.
every time we want to speak about black pain,
Wait, let's let her finish.
every time we want to speak about black pain, he's used across the spectrum by those who don't want to say, but Madiba would have wanted this, right? That's all we continue to hear this time and time and again. And I'm actually getting quite upset right now because of the way I feel suffocated. And I think, yes, Rhodes would approve because it means it's preserved his wealth. That's why he would have approved of the situation right now. So even this equality, you know, we all want non-racialism, but it's not feasible to speak about it as long as black people are still on the back foot, as long as you're still sitting on top of me. I cannot talk about equality right now.
Tato, as a transgender woman, you say that transformation is not only about race. Tell me about this.
We have to be cognizant of how privilege works, right? And like we have to problematize this panel. The fact that there's so many black cis het males speaking on the revolution. Trans, queer women have a huge stake in the revolution. And that's my position. That at the end of the day, Nelson Mandela was a black cisgender, like heterosexual man. And like, I don't think that he was like, where is that code on my trans reality as a black queer woman? So we have to be cognizant of the fact that in this revolution, we're putting we're centering certain voices. But when we stand up as queer people and say that we're standing up against this oppression, not just as black people, but as queer people, like we're divided. So those are the questions I'm interested in.
All right. Fantastic, sir. You've had your hand up for quite some time.
I think personally, we need to clarify one thing here. Black love is not white hate. So by loving my own, it doesn't mean I hate white people. And then Father Fanon, the late Father Fanon teaches us that each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. Now, our generational mission is more of the psyche than that of the late Bikos and stuff. Theirs was to revolt against the system. Ours is to discover a national culture, a way in which we will live together. So in saying, no, we want to shy away from Western modernity or Eurocentrism, or we want now to accommodate more black students into institutions of higher learning, I don't see how is it wrong if we say black people first and white people after. Because now black people have been oppressed for 500 years.
All right, it would be nice to hear from some more black women.
Marcella, can I say this?
Before we do.
In us moving forward, it doesn't mean that you rubbish what was done in the past. I mean, because I think some of the argument here is taking that direction. You know, Mandela was in a certain era. He did the things that he had to do at the time. You must live now and try and craft your way forward, as he has just said.
Rhodes Must Fall is spearheaded by young people who had access to tertiary institutions. Their parents didn't have access to tertiary institutions. And these are young people who are born into a democracy, and all people would have us believe that you must be grateful that you live in a democracy, that you even have access to tertiary institutions. Why are you complaining when you're at UCT, when you're at WITS, when you're at Stellenbosch? And yet we're not buying into the Rainbow Nation project. And that's something that's important. And being in tertiary institutions where you're otherized, being in tertiary institutions where the space is violent, where you feel like you cannot learn, you cannot go forward because you have a white professor who doesn't want to call you Zamantongwa. And if you write an essay, for example, where it's a 90 essay, they'll think, who wrote that for you? They will not give you 90%. And that's problematic. And you find that at all these universities. So Rhodes Must Fall says we need to have a conversation, not just as young people, but as a people. Yes, we have democracy, but young people aren't buying into this democracy. So even when we say that Mandela has done a lot, don't silence our anger. We're angry because when him and I apply for a job, he's more likely to get it than me. And in the event that we both get it, he's going to get paid more than I'm going to get paid. And right now he's picking up his hand. He's probably going to talk about probably going to talk about affirmative action and BEE and how a lot of white people aren't getting jobs, but he's still getting paid way more than me. When I get paid, money has to go home. So let's not even, and we haven't even touched on black tax, right? He got a car probably in matric as a present. I have to buy my own car. So I start working. You're in debt when you start working because you have to pay
You're making all these allegations about it.
Wait. Give her a chance to speak.
How well do you know me?
We'll give you a chance to speak. Let her finish.
He's saying I'm making assumptions and accusations about, let's not make it about you as the individual, but who you're representative of. Because when I said it's also not about me, but it's also about the community that I speak from, right? And that's what Rhodes Must Fall has put on the agenda.
After the break, we hear from a radical student who